In October of 2022 in Columbus, I installed a Ring doorbell for a week after a stranger tried my handle at midnight. I live alone on the 6th floor, a quiet building with carpeted halls and a concierge who watches sports with the sound off. The doorbell made me feel in control. The app sent rich notifications, and I liked glancing at the thumbnails like weather reports. If a package arrived, I knew. If a neighbor paused to tie a shoe, I knew. I thought more data meant more safety. At 2:17 a.m. on a Tuesday, my phone buzzed on the nightstand. Person detected at front door. The preview photo was my bed. The angle was wrong for a mirror or a window. It looked like a camera near the ceiling, pointed down at my pillow, and the black fan blades slowly turning. For a long second, I lay still and watched myself sleep in a frozen picture taken seconds earlier. Then the clip loaded, stuttered, and ran. 30 seconds of night vision, gray and grainy, my chest rising and falling, the timestamp marching across the bottom. I was wide awake by the 5-second mark. The clip label still said front door. I let it end and opened device health. Battery good. Signal fair. Event history showed motions at 11:06, 12:43, 1:38, all tagged front door, with thumbnails of my bedroom from the same high corner. I turned on the light. The doorbell sat where it always had on the hall side. The blue ring was dark. The peephole looked like an eye that did not blink. I did what every reasonable person does at 2 in the morning. I told myself there was a logical answer and tried to make my phone the problem. I cycled the app, then the phone, then my Wi-Fi. I reset the ring and waited for the chime. The alerts kept arriving every half hour, each with the same impossible view. My linens, the fan, the closet door angled slightly open. I thought about calling downstairs, then imagined explaining that my front door camera had crawled into my bedroom while I slept. I made coffee instead. By sunrise, I had a plan. I stuck blue painter's tape across the inside of the front door at knee height, pressed a dot over the tiny screw that holds the ring to its bracket, and balanced 2 pennies on the top hinge. If anyone opened the door or touched the device, I would know. I checked vents and the smoke detector for hidden lenses. The detector chirped when I pressed test. The vents held dust. My windows latched from the inside. The balcony was concrete and sealed. I turned the closet light on and left the door wide. All day at work, I replayed the clips until the edges felt smooth. I do IT support at a hospital. I solve small panics with passwords and printers. The part of my brain that likes cause and effect told me it was a database glitch. Maybe Ring mislabeled devices, maybe a neighbor linked to my account. That evening I knocked on the apartment across from mine, a woman in scrubs I'd smiled at in the elevator. She listened, tired, and showed me her app. No bedroom thumbnails. No odd labels. She said to call the company. I did. The support tech was friendly and not helpful. We walked through resets and firmware updates. He checked the Mac and serial and confirmed the device sending these clips was the one bolted outside my door. When he asked what the footage showed, I told him. He went quiet. He gave me a ticket number and a promise of escalation. After we hung up, the app buzzed again. Person detected at front door. The clip showed my dark bedroom, and, for a single stuttering frame near the end, a smooth white oval of an eye between the closet door and the jamb. I paused the video and inched the timeline backward and forward until the pixels broke. An eye, then nothing, like a fish surfacing and vanishing. I walked to the closet and stood there with my hand on the pole, telling myself I would be furious when I found a bent hanger casting a shadow the right way. I opened the door. Shirts. Storage bins. My old college posters rolled into a tube. No camera. No culprit. I slept with the light on and a hammer on the nightstand, because I am braver in the morning than I am at 3. The next day, I bought a motion sensor and an iPhone tripod. I set the phone to record, lens aimed at the corner where the Ring clips were filmed from. I put baby powder along the closet threshold and the front door, a trick I learned from a true crime forum. If someone stepped, they would leave prints. I texted my sister and told her I might have to crash at her place. She sent jokes, then concern, then a promise to call me at 2. At 10, I killed the light and climbed into bed under the fan. I made myself keep my eyes closed. At 1:41 a.m., my phone buzzed. Person detected at front door. I did not move. The old iPhone on the tripod recorded the dark, a pale bar of city glow under the curtains. Another buzz came at 2:19 a.m. I could feel the tiny motor through the nightstand like a pulse. I counted breaths and let the fear build without acting on it. which felt like holding a heavy box still. At 2:47 a.m., the app chimed again. This time I reached and turned the screen just enough to see the thumbnail. My bed, of course. Me, of course. And in the bottom right corner, half hidden by a shirt sleeve hanging from the open closet, the dumb blue ring of a camera status light, taped over so carefully that it leaked only a halo. I didn't sit up. I didn't scream. I slid my thumb to the side and tapped 911 while keeping my eyes on the closet. The dispatcher answered on the second ring, and I whispered my address and said someone might be inside my apartment. She asked if I could leave safely. I said maybe. She told me to take my keys and go to the hallway, leave the door open, and wait by the elevator where the cameras see me. Do not confront. Do not search. Do not hang up. I said okay, and the word felt like a life raft. I walked like I was balancing water. The baby powder line at the closet was untouched, a thin white crescent on the wood. The one at the front door looked the same. I kept my shoulder to the wall and stepped into the hall. The concierge was at his desk, eyes on a silent game. He stood when he saw my face. The dispatcher stayed with me, told me officers were on the way, and asked if I could still see my door. I said yes. The blue hallway carpet had a thread loose that I had never noticed before. 2 cruisers arrived fast enough that the dispatcher sighed into the phone. The officers came up with their guns low, knocked once, announced, and entered. I watched the doorframe and tried not to measure time. When the first officer called clear on the living room and kitchen, the dispatcher finally let me hang up. The concierge handed me a bottle of water. I did not realize my hands were shaking until the cap rattled against my tooth. One of them waved me over. The closet light burned under the door like a strip of noon. He opened it with the tip of his pen. Shirts and boxes. No person. He pointed up. At the ceiling line in the far corner, there was a neat circle cut into the drywall the size of a nickel, blackened around the edge like someone had singed the paper to hide the chalk of the plaster. A tiny lens glinted deep in the hole. Below it, tucked onto the top shelf behind a stack of folded towels, was a palm-sized Wi-Fi router, the kind you take to hotels. The second officer unscrewed the faceplate of my doorbell with a tool from his pocket. The bracket outside came off like a hat. Behind it sat a 3D printed shell with nothing inside, just a dollhouse front where a camera should have been. He held it up between 2 fingers and whistled. "Your doorbell's guts are in the closet," he said. "Whoever did this left the shell so you wouldn't notice." He nodded toward the powder by the threshold. "Smart," he added, and I could not tell if he meant the powder or the person who had put the camera in my wall. They bagged the router and the camera board and the bit of drywall around the hole. The officer showed me the faint blue halo where someone had taped over the status light and missed a sliver. He said the nickel cutout gave the lens a keyhole view that widened at a distance. He said the height and angle matched my own ring clips. It explained the thumbnails. It did not explain the single frame of an eye looking back at me. The baby powder at the closet threshold was broken now in 2 places. One print was mine from earlier, the slipper tread obvious. The other was the size of my hand and nearly smooth, a cheap boot with the lugs worn down. It headed toward the back wall and stopped at a rectangle of fresh caulk I had never noticed because it matched the paint too well. The officer pressed, and a panel gave, lightless black behind it. He aimed his flashlight into the shaft. It was a plumbing chase, a narrow service space that ran the height of the building, pipes sweating in the beam like cold bones. They called for a K9 and a second unit to sweep the basement access. I stood in the hallway with the concierge and watched my open door like it could answer anything. He kept saying he had never seen maintenance up here after hours unless someone called. I believed him and did not. The dog alerted at a steel door 2 floors down that led to the service corridor. The officers found footprints in dust along the cinder block, then a candy wrapper folded into a square inside a valve alcove. They collected it with forceps. It felt too delicate and too dirty at the same time. By 4 in the morning, they had a property manager on site with a ring of brass keys. He looked at the panel in my closet and the fake doorbell and went paler than his shirt. He said only 2 contractors had access to that shaft in the past month, one to snake a drain, one to change riser insulation. He said both signed in during business hours. The officers asked for names and vehicles and phone numbers. The manager called and got a voicemail for one and a sleepy denial from the other. They promised to pull camera footage from the loading dock. They took my statement while forensics dusted the closet shelf. The powder revealed a partial palm and the edge of a thumb pressed into the wood. The tech lifted it and said I might get lucky if the guy had a record. I kept looking at the nickel hole and thinking about the single frame of that eye. It had not looked surprised. It had looked patient, like it had all the time in the world and a space the width of a shoulder. I changed the locks, moved my bed, and taped the closet shut. At 2:17 a.m., the app stayed quiet. I still bought earplugs for sleep that year.